off demographic and psychographical characteristics of particular adoptive cohorts. You usually start with innovators. Those are really, really cutting-edge people who are the ones who actually create how this technology will be used. That's a very small part of the population. They're very difficult to find. Usually you don't find them because you don't know the technology exists until the innovators have already done their part. Then you have the early adopters. Those are the guys you see running around with the latest gizmos. Every day they've got the newest gizmo. That's about 13.5% of the market, and that's a very important market. When I mentioned that during the soft launch, not everyone's created equal. There's specific markets that you might want to target. I would say look for the early adopters. After that's the early majority, then the late majority, and then the laggards are pretty hard to reach and may not be really valuable for you to pursue. What's interesting about this model is that later, this was written a long time ago, it started in the 1890s and the 1930s and 1950s, but the model's held up over time and have been adapted to new technology. Originally it was with hybrid seeds for farming, but it's amazing that the model has been applied to iPhones and everything else ever since. Each of these groups actually influences the other group. Recent research has proven that there's actually this chasm. It's probably not the best position for it. It's technically between the early adopters and the early majority. And the ability to reach the early majority and push it up to the peak there is very dependent on successfully reaching the early adopters in the beginning. If you put your marketing efforts across the board, it's going to be watered down. You really need to identify who your early adopters are. They need to be what recent research has referred to as technology stewards, people who understand the technological needs of their community and also has a technology background or at least understanding to make use of what it is you're delivering to them and be able to spread the message that this is acceptable. Roger also had another model that demonstrated how, it's called the diffusion of innovation model. Is anyone familiar with that one? It basically models how new innovation is taken on by people. What is the process? And recent research says that a new component needs to be added to that model called assurance. In your industry, you're very, very regulated, so you have some help from you may call it help, you may call it a hindrance. But regulation helps with the assurance phase because once doctors realize that a particular technology or application of technology is regulatory compliant, then assurance is a lot easier. Other industries are having a much bigger challenge because things are not as regulated and we have to help consumers feel that assurance by marketing directly to them that assurance. We can't package it in regulation, with the exception of privacy. There are privacy regulations in all industries. Mobile, however, although you have lots of information about your particular target demographic, every mobile user is unique and they need to be treated that way. That's going to add a lot of challenge to how you market to particular consumers. They're going to have individualized preferences. They're going to have individualized devices. They're going to have individual context. The Manhattan research, for example, is going to tell you a lot about particular disciplines. So you're going to have to keep dividing smaller and smaller to provide the right message at the right time in the right format. Mobile devices are truly the most personal of all mass media. If you think about it, your computers can be shared at the office or at home. Only mobile is truly personal. A recent study said that many Americans are more likely to share their toothbrush than their mobile phone. That's a pretty scary statistic, but that's what research has revealed. We're very, very sensitive about these little devices. We put our own covers on them, our own wallpaper, ringtones. We do lots of things to personalize these devices We don't personalize movies. We don't personalize our television sets or our radios. Only mobile is truly personal. And we have to take that into account with our marketing messages, that these are personal devices, and any message that we put on those devices, whether it's a native application, a mobile website, or a SMS message, it has to be acceptable by the individual, and individuals' tolerance for acceptance are different. We have to be invited in. The end user, the consumer, is in complete control over when and how they receive that message. And if we violate that, we can kill this initiative before it even really takes off. Devices. There's so many different devices and platforms out there that we have a fragmentation problem. We have a fragmentation of devices. We have a fragmentation of platforms. This makes it extremely difficult to target all platforms. So you probably shouldn't. You really need to focus on which devices your best customers have. If you're doing a soft launch, focus on the devices that your early adopters are using. Focus on the top platforms. You're never going to justify going across the board, across all devices. It's just too cumbersome. This is, again, an area that I've discovered that your industry has an advantage at. We'll get to that in the